biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. We also got C-Win joining us in studio on a Monday. Glad you could join us. So, as you know, Bernie Sanders just destroyed it in the Nevada caucus. Overwhelming win for him, a good showing for him. Not surprising, and I did say that Joe Biden would have probably his best finish so far. He did, finishing in number 2. But as you recall, when Donald Trump had his speech here in Vegas on Friday, I believe it was, he told everybody that he wanted Bernie Sanders to win, and I think a lot of people took that as well. Bernie is probably the best opponent for Donald Trump. Well, now there are some Republicans that are actually going the extra mile on that, and Chuck Muth is a Nevada GOP activist. He's a conservative blogger and a consultant based right here in Las Vegas. He actually took the extra step to vote for Bernie Sanders, and he's going to tell us why as he joins us right now on the line. Chuck, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Okay, so
hey, what's up, Chuck?
You are the best person to explain why you did what you did. So tell us why you voted for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, there was really two parts. The first part was I have been an opponent to this whole idea of early voting and same-day registration for a long, long time. And in this particular caucus that the Democrats just conducted, they did both. They allowed early voting and they allowed same-day registration to participate in their caucus. So on Sunday morning, last Sunday, my wife and I went to an early voting location. We changed our party right there on the spot. We caucused for Bernie Sanders. And then if we wanted to, we could have just gone right back and switched parties again the very next day, which was primarily not that we thought we were going to make a big difference, obviously, in the outcome of the election, but just to demonstrate the stupidity of early voting and same-day registration.
Okay, I agree. Let me just be honest. I completely 100% agree with you. You shouldn't be allowed to be able to vote for Bernie Sanders, switch your party, and then switch back. I think that's ridiculous. So I am on your side 100% on that one. I think that's absurd, and they need to change the laws and the rules. You should not be able to allowed to change your party 24 hours after caucusing for a Democrat. So listen, I am completely with you on that. Do you agree with Donald Trump? Because I would imagine you're a Trump supporter. I don't put words in your mouth, but you are, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, we'll get to that in a few minutes because I am not. So I'm sure we could have a good debate on that. But
sure.
You agree with Donald Trump that you think Bernie Sanders is probably the best candidate for Donald Trump to defeat?
Well, that was the second part of my reason for wanting Bernie Sanders. Not so much that I think he's the easiest candidate for Trump to beat. I think Donald Trump is going to win in a landslide against any of those candidates that are out there right now. The main reason I want to see a matchup between Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, though, is because that would be such a clear contrast and such a wonderful civics lesson, especially for the youth of our country, which would have an avowed socialist going up against an avowed capitalist. And if that's the case, the fall election cycle is going to be a daily civics lesson for everybody about exactly what both of those things mean for the future of our country. And that's why, more than anything else, I was a Bernie caucus goer.
Okay, I would imagine that you had a problem with Obama raising our national debt in the 8 years he was president, correct? Can I assume that?
Oh, I have a problem with both the Democrats and the Republicans raising our national debt and spending our kids into
fair enough.
Bankruptcy.
We completely agree on that as well. But what I would like to bring up is the fact that Donald Trump has raised our national debt in the first 3 years of his tenure a lot more than Barack Obama has. And I'm not trying to do whataboutism here, but would you agree that Donald Trump has not done a good job with our national debt the first 3 years he's been president?
I wouldn't disagree with that. I would, however, with the caveat that the problem is we have a Congress that loves spending this money more than anything else, and they are equally complicit in this. It's just obscene what we're doing to our future generations.
All right, so let's talk a little Donald Trump here for a second, and I'll tell you the reason why I would never vote for Donald Trump. I don't think I ever would, and here's why. It has usually nothing to do with politics. I'd say 95% nothing to do with policy and everything to do with the fact that I just think he is an awful human being. Whether it's the ex-wives he's had, cheating on his wives, whether it's going after a war hero in John McCain, saying he doesn't respect him because he's captured, whether it's demeaning women based on their looks. Just a few weeks ago, he made fun of Nancy Pelosi's dentures. I think it sets a horrible example to our kids. He is the leader of the free world, and I think he is just irresponsible with the words he uses, the things he says on a regular basis, the thin skin that he has, and absolutely I think he withheld aid for personal gain. Even many Republicans would agree, even though they didn't vote guilty. Would you agree with that Donald Trump, he's just a bad guy?
No, I don't agree with that. I mean, you and I could probably debate this for hours and hours and hours.
No, I don't think it takes hours and hours and hours to admit that when you go after a war hero in John McCain and say you don't respect him because he's captured, it's an awful thing to say.
Well, okay, we're going to have to go back now. I've been doing this for close to 30 years now in Nevada in the political world. And what most people who aren't involved in the conservative movement, not people who just claim to be conservatives, but have actively been involved in trying to advance conservative philosophy and policies for years, we understand that John McCain, for years, had been a problem for conservatives in the government.
So you disagree with his policy?
You don't think John McCain's conservative?
No, and some of the things that John McCain did, he was much more wanting to be a maverick and be popular. And probably the best example toward the end of his life was when he switched on repealing Obamacare, which all the Republicans ran on in the election. And then,
for argument's sake,
one vote kept it.
I understand, Chuck. So for argument's sake, hypothetically, let's just say you're 100% right. We're talking about policy disagreements.
But he's not, though.
Okay, but even if he is,
make that assumption.
Okay, for argument's sake.
Okay.
Let's just say you're right, okay? Does that give someone running for president the right to attack someone on their service to this country and say you don't respect somebody because they're captured? What does it have to do with if we all disagree with policy, it doesn't mean I'm going to go after someone and say I don't respect them because they were a GOP, I'm sorry, they were a POW for 5 years. There's a fine line there you should never cross.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of people would agree with you that they don't like a lot of the manner in which the president communicates.
But you don't.
About
I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about you. You think it's okay to go after a war hero and someone you don't respect someone because they're captured? Are you okay with that statement?
Yeah, but you have to take what he said in context and understand where he was coming from.
It was 100% in context. It's been the impression of all of us that listened and heard and watched that entire situation. We all know exactly what the context was.
All right, well, Chuck, how are we taking it out of context? Go ahead.
Okay. President Trump, even as most people know, is more of a counterpuncher. He didn't just launch into an attack on John McCain. He was
so you're giving a reason then. You're giving the reason why President Trump said it. You're not trying to actually defend the comments. You're giving a reason behind it.
He's not trying to justify it. He's just saying Donald Trump isn't bullying people like he's perceived to. Donald Trump is consistently attacked, and unlike any president in the last 100 years, he actually attacks himself, and the public isn't used to that. And obviously, you and Brian aren't used to that. I think that's what Chuck is saying. Am I wrong in saying that, Chuck?
No, I think you're right. I think that Donald Trump is a quintessential New Yorker. New Yorkers are a lot more blunt and outgoing, and it's very off-putting for people who aren't accustomed to that.
Okay, well, let me respond to that. I'm from Connecticut. I have a lot of family in New York. In my entire life, I'm 39 years old. I've never attacked someone based on their service to this country because they were captured at war, so I completely disagree with you on that sentiment. But we're going to disagree on that, Chuck, and that's fine. Let's move on to the next subject, and that is when he attacks women based on their looks. You could disagree with Nancy Pelosi all you want. In fact, I'm not a Nancy Pelosi supporter. But with that being said, when you go after her dentures and her teeth, it is beneath the presidency, Chuck. I hope you would agree with me on that.
And okay, so if I had been prepared and I could have gone back and gone through everything else for this line of questioning, I would be better prepared for that. I will say that Nancy Pelosi has similarly said horrible things about the President of the United States, calling him a racist and other things. And I think if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. I mean, he is treating Nancy Pelosi exactly the way he would treat anyone else and the way he has treated other people who have come after him. I mean, if you can't take, if you can't take it, then don't dish it out. I guess is the old saying.
Look, Chuck, and no disrespect.
Well, it's kind of like
all due respect
the
to
golden
Chuck.
rule.
I mean, he talked about he had 30 years experience in Nevada and politics, and it has nothing to do with you being prepared for the show. It's just a general outlook and viewpoint when it comes to the president when he does things that are not normal, when he does things that are extremely disrespectful and beneath the presidency. You can still be a Trump supporter and call them out. It's not being a Republican or a Democrat. It's just being a good human being and making an observation and saying, you know what, Mr. President, you know what, Donald, I don't agree with the process and the way that you go about handling certain situations.
Well, and that's
it's not about being prepared.
I don't agree with a lot of things that Donald Trump does, but that's not going to move the needle to the point where I'm going to not vote for him.
Well, go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, exactly. If you could take these incidences where you're talking about personality, and then you have to contrast that to what other people are looking at who are going to be voting in November. We got a strong economy. He's renegotiated trade deals. We've got the lowest unemployment in half a century, especially among blacks, Hispanics, and other minorities, women. I mean, the man has a record of success. It's the old saying, don't listen to what he says, watch what he does. You're listening to what he says and taking a few things that you don't like.
It's not
a
few things.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
And I think that a lot of we'll call it left wing, and Brian isn't left wing, Chris is more left wing, but left wing media hosts, they are prioritizing what he says over what he does, and the majority of the country is not going to do that because they don't care about. I mean, obviously, if Donald Trump is doing some obscene things in his personal life, that's one thing, but as long as their life is being enriched in the process, that's what they care about.
But we're not just fabricating things out of thin air, JD. It's not like I'm some left-wing loony liberal who's just making stuff up about Donald Trump. The man is the fourth impeached president in the history of the United States. The man goes on a national stage in Helsinki with President Putin and disagrees with his intelligence community. I mean, there's a number of Brian brought up a couple of things that the president did that were disrespectful and dishonorable. There's been a number of other things that have taken place too.
From the things that you just said, here's two things. One, he was impeached, but he was also acquitted. He was found not guilty. That's a fact also. Two, as we're on the phone right now talking about this, and you were talking about him being presidential and the international stage, he was just greeted by 125,000 Indians in an address that he gave overseas to the nation of India. And people say, well, he's not presidential. He's not doing well with international relations.
I'm not going to say
125,000 people packed into a stadium.
Okay, let me respond to that.
Now, that being said, there are about 1 billion people in India.
Can I respond to that?
It's a very well-populated country.
First of all, he's in India.
Yes.
And if you were, I would imagine you went to, when he showed up on Friday in Las Vegas, I didn't see 125, I didn't even see 125 minorities there, let alone 125,000. So let's start there. Number two, I'm an independent, and I think it is okay to say we can have both. We could have someone with good policy and someone who is a decent human being. I believe it is important what the president says. I think his words are important, and I am very confident, Chuck, with all due respect, if Barack Obama attacked a woman verbally, if Barack Obama attacked somebody like Laura Ingraham on Fox News, she attacked him every day for 8 years, I'm pretty sure you would have had a problem with that, and you wouldn't have said, well, it's just words. Let's talk about his policies. That is my problem. There needs to be consistency on both sides of the aisle. And listen, there are some Democrats out there that I am not happy with either. But with that being said, when you're the president of the United States, it shouldn't be just policy that's important. How about being a decent human being and treating people with respect? I don't think I'm asking for too much.
I hear what you're saying, that you're not happy. Now, I'm not happy with something that you just said, and it's outrageous for you to have even said that.
Okay, let's talk about it.
You have followed the media, this dialogue that Donald Trump is a racist by saying that
did I call him a racist?
Black faces
Hold on.
No, you didn't, but you
first of all, I didn't say that.
No. Any black faces.
Okay,
you're making an assumption, though, Chuck.
First of all,
he's making an assumption.
Let me speak, please, because you raised this
Well,
point.
you just made an assumption. That's not true.
That's not true.
I will finish, and then you can go ahead and go from there.
Go ahead.
My wife went to the rally. I've got a photograph. I pasted on Twitter where she found a group of black voices for Trump that were there.
Sure.
But you want to overlook that, and you want to keep playing this narrative that Donald Trump's a racist, and you're doing it subtly and
first
not
of all,
overtly.
all right.
You haven't called him a racist yourself.
Chuck,
but by saying that you didn't see 125 black faces there, that is just outrageous.
All right, well, let me give you some facts then. And first of all,
Chuck, I don't think that he's calling him a racist. I just think that he's saying that Donald I'm a Trump supporter here, but I think that he's saying
Well, I'm right here. I can defend myself.
Trump's strongest supporters happen to be Caucasian.
I appreciate that, JD, but I'm right here. I just want to defend myself. First of all, I didn't call him a racist. Second of all,
I didn't say you did. I said you insinuated by what you said.
Okay, now let me finish. There might have been a small group of African Americans that your wife talked to. That's very nice. But do you know the percentage of how many white people that are in Donald Trump's administration? Because this is a fact. This isn't hearsay. Do you know the percentage of that, Chuck?
So you want to keep on playing this game?
Okay, I'll answer it for you. No.
Simply because
I'll answer it for you. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'll tell you what's not the American way. Not having diversity. 87% of his.
That's not. No.
Excuse me. Excuse me. No. Let me finish. 87% of his administration is white. Okay. 87%, not one Latino in his administration. Are you telling me that you don't have a problem with that? And by the way, as far as your wife talking to a few minorities, you cannot tell me that there were 10% minorities at that event. Okay, it wasn't.
I didn't say there was.
Okay, so
what I am saying though is that you continue this narrative that he has not reached out to.
It's not a narrative. It's the fact. I just gave you his administration. 87% white. That's not a narrative. That's
You're counting numbers. You're not. So we should just put somebody in a position simply because of their race or their
never
color,
said that.
regardless of their
never said that. Never
That's
said that.
reverse discrimination that you're
Excuse me. I never said just throw anybody in office because of their color. I said.
So what's the quota?
Okay,
what's the quota? How many people of color do you need to make you happy?
Chuck, Brian would like to see 70-30.
Okay, I never said that. JD's trying to be funny, but I'm trying to be serious.
Maybe 55-45.
Thank you, JD, but that's not what I'm saying.
Spread out 15-15 amongst Asian Americans.
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
The same thing.
That's not what I'm saying.
The majority of people in this country are white. Why are so many of the players in the National Basketball Association on the court
Did you ever think?
Not white?
Okay, that is the most
ridiculous.
Okay, you know what's okay? First of all,
the heck was that comparison?
Hold on. You just said why are there more Did you really just say why are there more African Americans in the NBA than whites? Is that what you just said?
You're going to play the numbers game.
No, I'll answer your question. No, I'll educate. Okay, fine.
There aren't enough minorities represented.
Then I'll educate you in saying that many of these African Americans are better athletes. If you know anything about sports, you would say that.
It's not possible that many of the Trump administration people are better competent administrators than people of color.
You think that's what it is?
So you think that's not possible?
So how about all the people that have gone to jail, like Paul Manafort, like Michael Cohen? How about all the people that have pled guilty? How about all the people that have left the administration or been fired? You're telling me that you couldn't have found minorities that were better fit for the job than all the people that have been fired? Answer that question.
I don't even know where you're going with that.
What do you mean? Answer the question. All the people that have been fired or that have been committed felonies. He was his campaign manager and advisor, so don't give me that crap.
He was his campaign manager and advisor for a very short period of time.
I don't care if it was for one day. He hired him.
Only, and I can educate you on that if you would like.
Please do. You've been very good in educating me for the last 20 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, you don't want to hear it. I understand that.
No, you don't want to hear it. Go ahead.
Paul Manafort was brought in for one reason. Paul Manafort was an expert in dealing with a convention where we were looking at the potential for a brokered convention.
Okay.
Manafort had extreme experience in that aspect of politics.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You may not have known that. I know that because I do this for a living.
How did that work out? How did that work out for him? How did that work out?
It worked out for Donald Trump. I'm pretty sure he won the nomination and went on to win the presidency.
I'm talking about Paul Manafort. He's in jail right now. He is a felon. And you're telling me you couldn't find? And what about his personal attorney, Michael Cohen? What about all the people that have been fired from Donald Trump's
security advisor? Many people that are in the Trump administration that are facing jail time.
You're making it that he's hired so many wonderful people and he's cleaned up the swamp. Yeah. But yet all the people that have either pled guilty to crimes or have been fired, you cannot make the argument that he hired only the best people has nothing to do with their skin color when many of them have been fired.
So you're saying that the people in his administration who he hired weren't competent simply because they were fired because of other reasons?
No, what he's saying is
they weren't the best people.
Since he didn't hire the best people.
They weren't the best people.
Well, he's turning this into a race and a total race thing. Since the people he hired were fired or were put in jail or whatever the reason is, now he should be required to hire new people that are minorities. Is that what you're saying, Brian?
I'm not saying he should be required to do that.
Why are you possibly mentioning skin color? It's totally irrelevant to the conversation.
No, it's not. I completely disagree.
How is it at all relevant?
Because this is about bringing the country together, and regardless.
Oh,
And
it's not about creating jobs or a wonderful economy and people can live their own lives. It's about bringing people together. Oh, my gosh.
Okay,
I didn't know that's what the presidency was all about.
That's absolutely an important aspect in this country, right?
Really?
Is the economy, without a doubt.
Really?
But it's not the. But Chuck, it's not.
People
Chuck,
together.
it's
Barack
not the
Obama
only thing.
Destroyed race relations. He set race relations back a generation.
Absolutely not. 100% false. You are 100% wrong on that. Yeah, you're just wrong. You're just wrong. That's not true. You're just wrong. And I mean, I don't understand.
Think I'm wrong doesn't make me wrong.
You're just wrong because the circumstances and the facts don't lay that out.
Chris, the way Barack Obama handled the Trayvon Martin situation was not good for race relations.
Barack Obama was a horrible president.
Same with the Michael Brown situation. Neither of the situations were good for race relations. The way that the president of the United States, who happened to be partially African American.
That's not an indication of President Obama's overall issues when it comes to racial relations in the country.
Okay, let's stop for a second. Let's take a deep breath. Chuck, here's the deal, right? We can disagree on policy. We can disagree. Listen, you're a Trump supporter. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I am not a Trump supporter. We can disagree on why you support the president, why I don't support the president. I really don't have a big problem with that. Here's the one thing where I have a problem on, Chuck, and let's try to rewind here quickly. When the president says something that is utterly disrespectful, like when he goes after John McCain in his war service, when he attacks a woman based on looks, when he attacked Ted Cruz's wife based on her looks. All I want, and listen, you can answer it any way you want to, Chuck. That's why we had you on, and we respect your opinion. But when you answer the question with whataboutism, and you can't just simply say, look, I support the president, but I don't support the president attacking women based on looks, or I don't support the president attacking people based on their service to the country, and you make excuses. That's where I have a huge problem with that. You can't admit the president has done or said anything wrong. Chuck, I have a big problem with that. And it's just, again, this is my personal opinion. You lose a lot of credibility when you can't admit the president has said some awful things about people. That's the core of this conversation, in my personal opinion.
Okay.
Mexicans are murderers and rapists, and I assume some are good people. S-hole countries and predominantly African countries, across the ocean. I mean, there's been a number of situations where Trump supporters have come out and said, look, those were horrible things that he said. He shouldn't have said it. But I still support him because of policies. I still support him because of the economy. I still support him because of A, B, and C. Way, I get that.
Okay, but by the way,
you got to be able to acknowledge when the president says things that are completely ridiculous and absolutely
By
offensive.
the way, Chuck, I agree with you that the president didn't do a great job as far as race relations in this country. I agree with you. By the way, I didn't vote for Barack Obama. That's something else I want to bring up in this conversation, Chuck. We agree on some of the stuff you're saying. I just wish that some Trump supporters out there would admit that he said some pretty horrible things and it's beneath the presidency. That's all I'm saying, Chuck. Really.
Yeah, I'm and just as was just said, a number of Republicans have said they disagreed with things that President Trump has said and what they've done. I will also say, however, that the news media, as we've seen, that why Donald Trump calls them the fake news media and why it has resonated with so many people is that a lot of the things he said and his intentions were taken completely out of context or misquoted, like the thing with the Charlottesville, where he said that he thought that
I didn't bring up Charlottesville. I didn't bring up Charlottesville. With all due respect,
I know you didn't, but others have.
Okay, but I'm specific.
And it was proved that he did not say that. That is not. It was taken out of context.
I understand.
So often that it causes a lot of people to simply say, "We're not going to play this game with the news media because you're just fishing, trying to find a way to undermine the president by doing that."
Well, listen, Chuck. I appreciate you coming on and giving us your take. I really do. We'd love to have you on again sometime. In fact, I would even have you in studio face-to-face and have a good, solid debate with you. I do respect you coming on the show and like I said, stating your case. Unfortunately, we're up against a hard break, but I appreciate your time, sir, and I appreciate you coming on.
That was great. Anytime, you guys. Take care.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks a lot, Chuck.
Appreciate him making the case. All right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. That was a heated debate. We're going to take some phone calls on the other side. 702-257-5396 is the number to call again if you want to be a part of the conversation. 702-257-5396 is the number to call. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. This is the Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. That was certainly a heated debate, interview, whatever you want to call it. We're taking your calls on it, your reaction at 702-257-5396. I promised I would get to all your calls on the other side of the break. A lot of people have been waiting patiently on hold, so let's get right to it. Let's go to Teresa. Teresa, thank you for waiting patiently. You're up next on the Vegas Take. What's going on, man?
Hey, thank you. How you guys doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
I'm just wondering why the little bull rush of the poor guy, simply because he was probably a white man, and why you guys think that you can speak for minority women and what we should or should not be opposed to.
We weren't speaking for any minorities.
Chris, let me respond to that.
That's exactly what you were doing.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, well, Chris, let me respond to this. First of all, I don't speak for minorities. What I said was Trump's administration is 87% white. I'm not speaking for minorities. Well, I'm stating a fact, number one. And number two.
Why would I care?
Excuse me?
Why would I care?
Well, that's fine.
Because I'm a minority, I'm supposed to be guaranteed a space in the Trump administration?
Well, here's how I feel. I can only give you my opinion. You're entitled to yours. My opinion is I believe that we should be a little bit more diversified in the White House, and we should be represented by more than 10% minorities in the White House. Now, that's my personal opinion.
Do you feel like when Brian says something like that minorities are not represented enough in the Trump administration, that he is trying to pander to minorities?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, you can think what you want, but I'm the type of person that wants equal opportunity for all. And when you look at all the people,
so essentially you're white knighting us minorities because you think that you know better than what we know. That's what we want.
No, Teresa, I could actually tell you that 99% of the minorities that I run into actually believe in what I'm saying and not what you're saying.
99%. That's very interesting. You surround yourself by liberal leftists.
Okay, so
that's exactly what it is.
Liberal leftists is JD's in the studio.
Okay, first of all, one of our hosts is a Republican. That's number one, Teresa. Number two, you have no idea. There's 3 people in the studio. Number two,
well, there's actually 4.
I know how many people are there.
Okay.
Are you watching?
Are you telling me I can't count because I'm a minority?
Let me. All right.
Wow.
You guys.
Teresa, I really enjoy you as a caller.
All right,
just let you know.
You guys let me know when I can respond to her. Can I respond now? Okay, Teresa, first of all, I don't care what the color of your skin is. We just disagree.
Yes, you do. Yes,
okay.
you do.
Oh,
you
really?
think that I should
so you know everything about me
simply because I'm a minority. Just because I'm a minority, whether or not I can actually fly a plane, I should be a pilot because they don't have your quota
Teresa,
for the minority of pilots.
Okay, so Teresa, how about
Teresa,
how about you listen for 30 seconds and stop talking? Why don't we start there? Okay, because you haven't listened to a word I said. I believe that.
I listened.
Oh no, you haven't. So open up your ears and listen. Okay?
You just haven't agreed.
Well,
so
it's
therefore,
hard for me to talk.
to Brian, that's not considered listening.
Again, let me know when I can respond.
The two have to go hand in hand.
Okay, go ahead, JD. Finish it. Go ahead. I won't talk. Go ahead.
In order to listen, you have to agree. That's how Brian works.
And she made comments saying that we speak for minorities when all I did when it comes to minorities and this presidency is I mentioned what the president of the United States has said about minorities in the past. That's all I said. I didn't represent you. I haven't tried to represent African Americans or Latin Americans or any other minority group. All I did was point out the
said that there were only 125 minorities at the Trump rally out here in Vegas.
I didn't say
I'm
that.
sorry I couldn't be number 126 because I was working and I didn't have enough time.
Okay, so let me respond to that.
I can guarantee you that there were more than 125 in that couple
or I won't respond to it. You guys can keep responding.
Okay, so President Trump, you're telling me, has a flood of minority support. Is that what you're trying to say? Is that what you're trying to portray?
Yes.
Is that more minorities than not support the president of the United States?
Have you been in the walkaway campaign?
It's just, okay. All right,
so you're trying to say that
that's your
so
point.
Teresa,
you think more minorities than less.
Teresa, there were 20,000 at that event.
Well, we're just responding to. We're responding. Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
I haven't been able to talk to this woman for more than 5 seconds without being interrupted by her. Both
Brian,
of you guys.
He's very unhappy right now.
No, I mean because you guys aren't giving me any time to respond. First of all, Teresa, I'm going to be very clear on my opinions. I was raised not to look at people based on race, but I was also raised to know that every single person should get the equal amount of opportunity regardless of skin color. Do you realize that in this country, if you're an African American, you are not getting the same pay as somebody that is white? Does that bother you at all, being an African American?
That is absolute nonsense.
No, that's a fact. No, okay, I'm done with her. I'm done with. I'm done. Yeah, and I'm done with you because you're a fool. Because that is a fact. Minorities are not getting paid the same wage as white people in this country. You are ignorant to the
Brian,
facts.
Well, let's talk about this.
Teresa, so we're supposed to assume she's not American.
She's not Mother Teresa.
Okay,
that's what she's
I am a 6'3" Caucasian man who is an above average athlete, but I will not be drafted by any NBA franchise and given millions of dollars. Should I?
It's a horrible analogy.
Am I being discriminated against, or is the NBA going after the people that match that position to the best of their abilities.
Okay.
So they're going after
that is
6'10" to 7'2" African American, typical African American men
Let me
who have
answer
about a
that
33 to 35-inch vertical leap who are outstanding
I get
athletes.
Your point.
No,
it doesn't take 5 minutes to ask the question.
Why can't each specific employer and each job play to the strengths and want the absolute best candidate for that position, regardless of color?
Is the question over with now? Can I answer
it? The question is finished.
Okay. Quite simply, whites, there is no evidence to support the fact that white people are not getting the same opportunity to be professional basketball players as African Americans. There's no evidence to support that fact. There's something called talent and athletic ability, and you can make the argument in the White House. Yeah. You can make the argument that minorities have had the same opportunity to get jobs in the White House as white people have. It's just not the case.
Okay, so why can't that same logic apply to the Trump administration or to politics or to any other job in the United States of America?
I'll give you the answer. Okay, first of all,
why does that logic only apply to the NBA?
Do you want the answer or do you want to ask another question? I'll give you the answer. The answer is that when you look at the people in Trump's administration, many of them who have committed crimes, some felonies, many of them who have been fired, they haven't done a good job at what they do. And you replace them with other white people, and you don't give other African Americans an opportunity or minorities. It is an 87% white administration.
How do you know that they're not giving any that African Americans and or minorities are not being given any opportunities?
Because they haven't been interviewed. They've done these stories before where you can see how many minorities have been interviewed for certain positions.
You're telling me the Trump administration has not even interviewed minorities for any of these positions at all?
I didn't say not.
And you can actually you can prove that. No, that's one hell of a statement.
Well, Brian. You asked me a question. I'd like to answer that. There have been studies that have shown behind the scenes that I didn't say no minorities were interviewed, but there have been a very select few of minorities that have been interviewed for the job working for the Trump administration. I have a problem with that. And for people that want to call up and say that there were a ton of minorities at the rally on Friday, you are a liar. 702-257-5396. I want to get to as many phone calls as I can. Let's go to Dwayne. Dwayne, you're next up on the Vegas Take. My understanding is you were at the Trump rally. Is that correct?
Oh, what's up, Dwayne?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I was there.
Okay.
And let me tell you something. I don't know what these guys are smoking all this weed out here. I don't know. Maybe the vision was blurry, but there wasn't very many black people there.
Yeah, what a shocker, okay? Dwayne, huh? What a shocker.
Yeah, there wasn't very many black people there. Okay, and they have to understand this. These people are watching Trump. Okay, black people are watching Trump. They don't want nothing to do with Trump. Okay,
right.
And the ones that are giving jobs to, they're sellouts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dwayne, can I ask you? Dwayne, can I ask you a question? And by the way,
were you there as a protester or a supporter?
No. I went there to investigate to see with my own eyes. Okay. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a protester. Okay. I went to go look. See, if you go and look, you'll find the truth. Okay. A lot of these people coming on this show, they're saying, "Oh, there were tons of black people." What's a ton? 5 ton?
Yeah.
6 ton? Okay? There's not a ton.
So, Dwayne, let me ask you a question. And by the way, I'm glad to hear you say that because I've heard from 20 people just like you that are saying the exact same things that you said. Why is it you think that we have people calling in basically lying or saying, well, my wife talked to a few African Americans. They're trying to defend the fact that Trump had all these minorities at the protest. Why do you think they're doing that, Dwayne?
Because Trump's a racist.
All right.
Come on. He's a racist.
Yeah. All right, Dwayne.
Yep. And it's coming, and I'm telling you.
Dwayne, I appreciate your phone call. I appreciate your perspective, my friend, and I'm glad that you were actually there to give us the facts. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Lewis. Lewis, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Lewis?
Hey, guys. Look, man, I think we have to start off by agreeing. I think all of us can agree that Americans want jobs, a safer place to live, good schools for our kids, and a pretty safe world, right?
No question.
If we can all agree on that. Why does the diversity in the cabinet matter? Because if you're white, black,
Here's why.
Asian...
No, I hear you. Here's why.
And I'm going to tell you, as a Mexican man, when you go there, I feel insulted.
Representation.
I want
that's
the
why.
same things that Americans want.
Okay, well, it's about representation. Yeah. That's number one. Number two, if you're working in Donald Trump's cabinet, and if you're an African American or a minority in this country, you'd like to know that there's somebody representing you that might look like you. I think that is important. I think that is a fair, logical thing to say.
That's a fair, logical thing to say. But didn't we just agree that all Americans, regardless of skin color, want the same thing?
It's not. It
it's
doesn't
not
have to be
that
mutually exclusive. Yeah, it doesn't have to be and or. It can be. It can be.
Well, I think
both be
it
true.
I think it depends whether if you identify as an American or a Caucasian American, a Latin American, an African American, an Asian American. I'm hoping that the majority of the country realizes that we are all simply Americans.
Let's go back to your phone calls. Let's go to Joel. Joel, you are next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Joel?
Thanks for taking my call. To be quite honest, and with all due respect, I think you guys blew it. You had the perfect opportunity with a guy who speaks for the Republican Party to ask him to defend some of the policies of this administration, and you got stuck in the weeds on stuff that is totally irrelevant to this next election.
Hold on. Let me rewind, Joel. I completely disagree with you, and let me be clear on why. Okay, well, am I not allowed to disagree with you?
Certainly you can.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. So let me just explain why I disagree with you, and then we'll let you articulate why you disagree with me. Sound fair?
Fair enough.
Okay. I believe that there are reasonable Republicans out there, and then there are unreasonable Republicans. The man we had on the line was an unreasonable Republican. The reason why I say that is if you can't even say that you have a problem with Trump going after a war hero, a man who was a prisoner of war, then how are you going to get into a debate, a logical debate with someone over policy?
Well, what you do is you present that argument and then let him twist in the wind.
Well, that's exactly what happened.
Didn't do.
Well,
you got stuck on John McCain. You got stuck on race, and that is for most voters. That is not. Neither one of those issues
are
going to make a difference.
Well, you're not.
I wouldn't define it as we got stuck. I would define it as we took into account certain aspects of the president. Look, it's a 3-hour radio show to the caller out there. Okay, we're not going to get to every single policy debate that we have with a guest on the show as far as what Republicans or Democrats want to do. I understand what you're trying to say, but it's not necessarily relevant to what the conversation was about.
I want to go to L. L, you are next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on, L?
Hey, what's up, L? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's continued to be a while. 257-5396. Go to Steven. Steven, you are next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, Steven.
Well, good morning, guys.
What's going on?
How you doing?
JD, I got a question for you.
I got an answer, Steven.
I think, well, first of all, I think you need a moderator there if we're going to have a fair discussion and a debate.
JD is the moderator.
In your position, when somebody says that you're wrong or somebody accuses you of being wrong, but Brian can stop the whole show and take up half of the debate.
For the record, you're stopping the show right now. For the record, you're stopping the show right now. We've lost all our listeners because of Steven.
I will say this, Steven.
Attack those who don't say something you don't like, right, Brian. That's the way you work.
So, Steven, that's the way I work.
Steven,
okay.
King Brian, this is actually a radio monarchy, but King Brian does have veto power.
King Brian?
Yeah,
Steven,
King Brian.
would you like
I wasn't aware of that.
So Steven,
that's an executive order?
Okay, so Steven.
It came from the Queen of England.
Okay, so we don't waste more time because we have a lot of other callers, Steven. Is there any other point you'd like to make, or was the only point in calling into the show was saying we need a moderator?
Yeah, I will agree to one thing.
Oh,
there
great.
was a white president several years ago that set up a lot of the problems in the world today.
Okay, so you're going to blame Bill Clinton.
These people,
all the presidents have been white except for Barack Obama, right?
These people.
Yeah, George W. Bush. You talking about George W. Bush?
Them for 100 years.
Could be.
And we have a part of our society that is only trained to go to the mailbox and cash a check.
Thank you, Stephen. You're killing me, Stephen.
I think he's talking about Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. Stephen, what's your radio experience? How long have you been in radio for?
How long have I been in radio?
Yeah.
About 30,
what do you
32
do?
years.
What do you do in radio? What do you do right now in radio?
I had a radio show. Mostly
and what happened to it?
Where
was your show? No, hold on. I want to know where you worked. Where was your show?
Political science degree and my law degree.
I didn't ask you about your
to influence society.
I appreciate that, Stephen, but I didn't ask. Hold on, but I didn't ask you about your degrees. Where was your radio show? What station was it on, and how long did you do your show for?
It was an internet site.
Oh, so it was a podcast.
Your own audience.
Okay, so it wasn't radio then. Okay, so hold on.
I played too much InfoWars.
All right, I don't care about
when I got fired
Stephen.
trying to advance society.
Okay, Stephen.
I think it was a waste.
Stephen, pot him down.
The guy had a show for 3 years and he couldn't get a caller.
Okay, pot him down.
Infowars, that's some pretty credible outlets there.
Okay, so Stephen, I asked you what your radio experience was. You said you've been in radio 32 years. Now all of a sudden it's turned into an internet.
I think he meant to say broadcasting.
Now all of a sudden it's turned into an
broadcasting.
Now all of a sudden it's turned into an internet show. And you're giving us advice on how to do a radio show?
There's no reason to kick a guy while he's down. He just admitted he did the show for 3 years and didn't make a dollar. Brian, we're all getting paid to do this. Thanks for the call, Stephen.
Yeah,
appreciate your efforts in the industry.
Yeah, your criticism of our show means absolutely nothing to me. 702-257-5396. Let's go to Paul. Paul, you're next on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
What's up, Paul?
Hey guys, good morning.
Good morning.
First thing I want to say is that I know that Brian, you're obviously not a racist. And the thing about President Trump and Pelosi, would you rather someone make fun of your teeth or publicly call you a racist?
I think they're both inappropriate.
If someone made fun of your teeth, Brian, would you respond to them? If someone attacked the fact that you're bald or that you have to wear a Guy Fieri wig on air or something along those lines, would you respond negatively to them?
As a radio host or the President of the United States?
Either.
So you think the radio host is the same as President of the United States? That's ridiculous.
I'm asking what you would do.
Okay, I'll do it as president because that's what Donald Trump is.
Okay.
As President of the United States, I would never insult someone based on looks. I would never insult someone based on the fact they're a woman. I would never insult someone as a POW that has served this country for 5 years. Not only is it beneath the presidency to do those things, it's beneath being a human being.
Hey, I'd like one more thing to ask you, Brian. And like I started off saying, I know you're not a racist, and I know that for a fact. But how many black or Hispanics are working on your show right now?
We have 3 people that are involved with the program right now. None of them are Hispanics or African Americans. But in my 20 years, hold on, let me finish. But in my 20 years of working in radio, I have worked with at least 20 minorities. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so and listen, I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying
I'm just answering your question.
But we do our digital. I will say this,
you're a racist.
Paul. Our digital branding team is African American owned.
I will also say that there are hundreds and hundreds of people working in Donald Trump's administration. There are several people working with us, so it's a horrible analogy that you're trying to make.
So no, I'm not, I don't think it is. And how many minorities did you say you worked with?
I work with several people.
Okay, you gave me a number on how many over the years that you've worked with.
You said 20.
Okay, now how many white people have you worked with?
Probably about 40. Probably about 40.
Why are you keeping count?
Well, you asked me a question. I'm giving you an estimation.
Okay, but
why am I keeping count? I'm giving you
that is something odd to keep count of.
You think I have
It's a bit odd.
All right.
Well, I appreciate that, Paul, but I got to get to some other callers. I appreciate that. I got to get to some other callers. Let's go to Brian. Brian, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Brian?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's up?
I disagree. I'm American with Hispanic heritage. My wife is African American. And she supports Trump. I don't really like Trump, but I support a lot of things that he's done. But you can't, if you're African-American or Hispanic minority, you go to these rallies and other minorities see you, they shun you. My wife has been cut off of social media anytime she says anything about she supports Trump.
And I would never support that type of behavior.
And that's a good point. So what Paul is saying, what the caller is saying is that there are a lot of African Americans who actually probably do support Trump that may not go to a rally because they don't want the negative backlash. Am I correct?
Exactly. And like I said, this is firsthand experience.
So let me ask you a question. Is that why Trump's administration is 87% white? Is that the reason for that?
Do you pay attention to how many people who do any African Americans or minorities who do anything supporting Trump are shunned? They're shot down.
But that's not what I understand, and I don't support that type of behavior. But
in some cases, it could affect their business. It could affect a lot of things about their life if they support. So I understand exactly what you're saying, Brian.
Let me pose a very simple question to the caller and to you guys, okay? When the average Joe and the average Jane in America think about the Trump administration, okay? And you can't name more than maybe 5-10 people that are directly connected with Donald Trump and his administration. Can you? Can you name more than just a handful of people? Brian, you just pointed out there are hundreds of people in the Trump administration. The average American cannot name more than a handful of people that work for Donald Trump. I think any normal person can say
let's get back to
that's
the phone
an
calls.
issue.
Let's
right?
get back to the phone calls.
Issue.
Let's go to Jennifer. Jennifer, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Jennifer?
Hi, yes. Well, we don't know everybody that he has on that works in the White House.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Pointed out,
yes,
though.
I do. Yes, it's a fact.
And he owns 500 businesses.
I'm talking about the White House.
He's employed thousands of
I'm talking about
people.
I understand. I'm talking about the White House administration. It is a fact that it is 87% white. That's all I said.
According to who? According to who?
According to every single person that works in the administration,
according
it's public
to
knowledge.
Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon.
No, it's not.
Yeah, right.
No,
exactly.
it's JD. That's incorrect. Okay, I'll tell you what, Jennifer. I'll make a bet with you right now. I'll make
Anderson Cooper.
Okay, if JD will allow me to, I will make a $1,000 bet with you right now on the radio, and $1,000 goes to charity. If I am wrong, if you think that it is way below 87%, you give me your number, I'll give you mine, and whoever's right donates $1,000 to charity. Would you like to do that?
He's actually trying to date you, Jennifer.
No,
clearly.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I don't date Trump supporters.
Actually, we don't know. Are you talking about in the?
What do you mean we don't know? Every
where he has Kelly and
oh my goodness,
it's not a big mystery. So are you trying to say that there's 50% of Trump's administration is minority? Is that what you're trying to portray? Is that what you're trying to get out there? Because it's just not true. It's just not factual.
Okay, he's got people that are African American that are helping him.
Yes, he does.
Reform
He has a few.
The state, that reform the prison system.
All right, Jennifer. So let me be clear. Let me.
So do you consider,
or let me be not. Let me be interrupted. One or the
other.
Okay, Jennifer. I'm gonna have to hang up on you because I got to get to some other callers. But let me be very clear on this.
Let me be clear.
Every single name that is in the White House is public knowledge. Their race is public knowledge. We all know what the color of their skin is. There is not one Latino that is in the White House, and you could name me one. I'd love to know. Let's get back to the phone calls. Let's go to Logan. Logan, you are next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Logan?
How's it going?
Good.
I was listening to you guys this morning. One of you guys was over at NASCAR for the event.
Two of us were. Yes, sir.
That's when I started listening to you guys this morning, and I found it so funny the way that you kind of portrayed NASCAR. Let me start off. I don't care about NASCAR. I can care less. But word for word, if Trump would have said what you guys were talking about, NASCAR and just race and how everything was there, it would have made front page news.
Well, here's the difference. I'm a radio.
That's what I find so funny.
Logan,
that's true. I agree with that.
Logan, here's the difference. He's the president of the United States, and I'm a radio talk show host. If I was the president, I wouldn't insult a bunch of people that support me for presidency.
I hate to say it, but I think you have more knowledgeable listeners than Trump does, being that he's even the president.
Well, but that might be true, although I would
so that was kind of like a backhand slap at Donald Trump, wasn't it?
It kind of.
Well, that's the thing. I'm nonpartisan. That's why I listen to you guys.
Logan, here's the deal, my man. Logan, here's the deal, my man. I hear what you're saying.
And that's the point of the show, Logan. Thanks for that.
I don't like NASCAR. I never have liked NASCAR. The demographic, the majority of people that are NASCAR fans are not minorities. They are white. And many of those NASCAR fans are Donald Trump supporters. I just don't get along with a lot of them. That's all I'm saying.
He prefers Fast and the Furious style street racing.
I'm not disagreeing with you whatsoever. My main problem is that the country is already split in so many directions due to politics, religion, race, you name it. But the more we keep talking about it, really, I think it helps.
Listen, I like you. Let me be very fair, Logan. I like you, and I'm going to get you a signed Larry the Cable Guy poster, okay, my man? I promise you.
Are you really?
Maybe Dale Earnhardt Jr., too, if you're nice to me, okay?
Brian, he's saying, you know what he's saying, Brian? He's saying
he actually does have the in with Larry the Cable Guy.
For maybe 5 hours
Logan, I appreciate your phone call, my man. I really do, and I appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much.
Good call, Logan.
How are you getting me the...
I'm sorry, Logan. I had to cut you off, man. I got to get to some other callers.
Yeah, Steve
JD was saying,
take down his information.
He was saying that Brian needs to check himself, that he has that he has a mindset where basically he's far away.
I'm just curious about Candace Owens, Terrence Williams, Diamond and Silk, Herman Cain, Ben Carson.
Diamond and Silk.
Last I checked, they don't work in the Trump administration.
I agree, but
they seem like very intelligent people.
But they support Donald Trump.
Okay.
They're minorities.
Well,
they have major followings, and they're going to help increase his African American voter turnout.
Let's see what Al thinks. We only have about a minute now. Let's go to Al. Al, what's going on? Thanks for calling in.
Hey, what's up, Al?
I'll try to make it really quick. I'm Hispanic. I went to the rally. I'm a Donald Trump supporter. I agree with what he does. But he's not the most eloquent guy. He's not. I don't like Barack Obama. He's extremely eloquent. I don't like him as a president.
Right.
But I got to tell you, Don is not an eloquent guy, but he's doing the right thing for America.
All right.
And I felt very welcome. And I got to say something to all the Caucasian white people.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me tell you something. Donald Trump is not just for white people, because I know they can't speak up. I play poker here. Everybody's afraid to say that they're for Donald Trump. Okay?
All right, well,
and
Al,
she's doing a great job, and that's what I got to say.
Al, I respect your opinion, and it seems to me, I'm glad that you were treated fairly.
And you know what? When Barack Obama was president of the United States, when I watched him and a lot of the things that he said, he said it so. He was so formal. He was so articulate. He was so eloquent. It almost felt like he was feeding me a line of BS. And I think a lot of people feel the same way.
All right, we appreciate all the phone calls. Wow, you want to talk about switching it up? Now we're going to go to a very funny comedian. We always remember the great Chris Farley, right? The man was a
fat
legend.
guy in a little coat.
We love Chris Farley. His brother, Kevin Farley, is in town, and he is going to be joining us next. Maybe we'll get into a little politics with Kevin Farley. I don't know.
There we go.
We'll see how that works out, but Kevin's going to be joining us next on the show. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take on 101.5 FM, 720 AM.